Hello, good morning to everyone. I would like to welcome all of you to our spotlight session on the power trade collaboration between South Asia and Southeast Asia. My name is Jeevan Acharya. I'm the Principal Energy Specialist in South Asia Division, and I'm also the focal point for regional cooperation and integration in the energy sector for South Asia. And we are putting this session together with my colleague Ejje, who is my counterpart for Southeast Asia. So she is the focal for regional cooperation for Southeast Asia. What is the little background here is that we have always been organizing our regional session for South Asia and also for Southeast Asia and our Central West Asia and East Asia. But then we thought that this regional cooperation should happen not only within the region, but should also be with the other regions nearby, and because sometimes there are also overlaps. There are also lots of lessons learned from one region to another. So that is the reason we thought that we take advantage of people joining this SF from all the region so that we can share our lessons learned and so on. So this is our first attempt to bring these two regions together. We have a number of speakers today to share, to make some presentations. We have also done some studies, and also some representative from the governments and also other agencies will also share their thoughts and so on. So we have a full pack program today for 1.5 hours. To start the program, I would like to request Priyantha Vijaytunga, he is the Chief of Energy Sector Group, to give the opening remarks, please.
Thank you very much, Jeevan. It's good to be here in this regional power trade spotlight session, a subject which is quite closer to my heart. In fact, all my life, professional life, I spent on regional cooperation-related work. In fact, I spent so many years in South Asia, both during my ADB times and before, working on South Asia energy cooperation. And so on my part, let me also welcome all of you to this important spotlight session. It's very important this time because it's not just South Asia, but South Asia plus Southeast Asia, which is important because the more you interconnect within the region and between regions, the better it is, because it's a global optimization of the resources you have rather than suboptimal situations within sub-regions and countries. Countries in Asia have made ambitious targets towards net zero emissions to address climate change. All of us know that. And accelerating energy transition calls for enhanced flexibility in the energy systems, and pushing boundaries to increase penetration of renewables to meet these targets. It's important to improve the flexibility and if you are going to meet the renewable energy targets in each of these countries and the sub-regions you are talking about. And cross-border electricity trade has immense opportunity for decarbonizing power sector and meeting seasonal demand-supply gap, through the development of large-scale cleaner, greener, and sustainable energy infrastructure, and facilitating renewable energy grid integration in different parts of Asia and beyond. Installed capacity of renewables, as all of us know, is only a fraction of what can be exploited and the potential in each of these regions and across regions. Cross-border trading of excess solar energy and hydropower could also play an important role in clean energy transition, grid balancing, and energy security in Asia. The more you are interconnected, the better it is when it comes to grid balancing and sharing resources, particularly under emergency situations and contingencies. Considering the dynamic nature of regional clean energy transition, it is critical for the region not only to pursue bilateral and multilateral power trade opportunities, but also to form regional power pool and a regional market. This will assist participating countries to optimize the use of regional resources and to provide flexibility to deal with intermittent renewable energy at any given time and at any given location. ADB has been supporting regional initiatives such as SASEC, South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation, and Greater Mekong Sub-Regional Program, GMS program, through which regional power trade and regional energy cooperation are very much being pursued. My colleagues will share details, Jeevan, Ajay, and others, of EDB activities in South Asia and Southeast Asia regions on regional power trade later in the program, as you can see in the program. This will require countries, among others, to establish suitable policies on enabling an enabling environment, as well as mobilize public and private capital to promote regional power trade for carbon neutral South and Southeast Asia and beyond. Of course, we would like to connect to CAREC region if possible at one point or the other in the future. It is with full but as practitioners in the field, we understand that the path to net zero future is far from simple. All of us know, both technically and also geopolitics play a very important role when it comes to achieving these objectives. With this hope of collaborating and discovering credible solutions to drive the South and Southeast Asia regions towards sustainable future, again, I would like to welcome all of you to this important session, spotlight session on regional power trade opportunities. The experiences gained in these regions should be shared with each other and identify areas for possible collaboration. In fact, if I can remember right, this is the first time we are meeting together as two regions, but to share experiences we have in each of these regions, and it's important that we replicate whatever lessons in one region in the other. In closing, I would like to reiterate ADB's support and commitment to work with all of you in promoting regional power trade in South and Southeast Asia for energy transition through our investments, technical assistance, and knowledge sharing. I urge you all to actively participate in the discussion ahead and explore collaboration opportunities within and between regions. And as you know, regional cooperation, one of the principles out of the 5 principles which we have in the Energy Policy 2021, that shows how important for us to pursue regional cooperation to the extent allowed, of course, subject to other constraints you have. And between regions to develop large-scale clean energy projects, power trade opportunities, and resilient infrastructure to pave way to a carbon-neutral South and Southeast Asia and beyond, as a sustainable future for all. With those few remarks, let me stop here. Thank you very much. All the very best for your deliberations today. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyantha. So now I would like to request my colleague Hyunjung Lee. She's a senior economist in ADB Southeast Asia Energy Division. And then she will make a short presentation about what's happening in this region. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Juan and Priyantha. Good morning to you all. My name is Hyunjung Lee. I'm a senior energy economist, as introduced, and working in Southeast Asia regional for the Southeast Asia region. I also been leading this Greater Mekong Sub-region cooperation under Southeast Asia, and we have working on this regional cooperation in the last 20 years and have been reformed, actually, the cooperation platform, purely focused on the regional cooperation, on the trade facilitation, to use of the regional power trade and interconnections as a mean to achieve the energy transition for the region. So what I'd like to do is, given the limited time, and I don't think I know everything about the Southeast Asia and then also the opportunities and etc. But to my best knowledge, I'd like to share the kind of high-level narratives of what has been done in the region in terms of the regional power trade and what could be the opportunities and prospect for the future. I don't know how much you're familiar with Southeast Asia regional power trade initiatives, but I guess you know ASEAN. That's the Intergovernmental Cooperation Organization, and it consists of 10 member states from Southeast Asia. And they've been formed, these ASEAN Power Grid initiatives, since 1997. But the map I show here shows that kind of power grid connections that like to achieve in the future. The dot line is showing the kind of more planned grid connections. But the kind of this line is solid line. It shows existing grid. And this is overall the power grid that have been formed in the last 30 years, and still a lot need to be done. Out of these, the ADBs have also the sub-regional cooperation program called Greater Mekong Sub-Region. They consist of these 5 Mekong, low Mekong region countries, and plus China, and especially in 2 provinces having Mekong River as well, and this Yunnan and Guangxi province. So ADB have been supporting this GMS cooperation since 2002, and also have been assisting countries to discuss about the opportunities of the regional trade, and then also improve the interconnections among the countries. So far, this has been achieved a lot of power trade in a way, but still a lot more to be done. At the moment, the existing capacity is around 8 gigawatt. And if you think about the total amount of the capacity of the ASEAN countries have, it's around near to 300 gigawatt. And actually, this is a quite small portion to facilitate interconnection in terms of the interconnections among the countries. But out of this grid, and it has a kind of 3 regional grid on the ASEAN. And the northern grid is actually the one that is overlapped with the GMS grid. Basically, without China, is the kind of northern grid of the ASEAN. And has been most significant progress in terms of the interconnections. And because mainly also is a land-based system, and also there's a lot of complementarities between countries' endowment in terms of the resources, and especially deriving from the hydropower from Laos, that has been also providing the sustainable and then also the low-cost electricity to the neighboring countries, including Thailand and then also Vietnam, and increasingly Cambodia as well. So we actually, this is a focused power system, power interconnection grid, and if you can see that actually there's a kind of type of the grid connections. Basically the grid connections in the grid-to-grid connection, but also there's a connections from the plant to the grid. So if you look at the Laos cases, basically there are a lot of the hydropowers are directly connected to the grid in Thailand, not necessarily grid connection, but increasingly there is also have a grid connections being formed in the region, and they facilitate bilateral trade between countries. In terms of the future, we see that this infrastructure present a lot of opportunities actually to trade more power, not only based on the long-term PPA that is basically locked in over time in terms of the capacity amount and as well as price. We think this is the infrastructure can be utilized that actually to facilitate more short-term power trade among the countries, and this is a kind of idea they would like to introduce today for discussion. Especially, we think is this interconnection become important because if you think about the energy transition in the region. Basically, the moving toward the more renewables, and if you look at these renewable energy opportunities, we see a lot of opportunities for example, in the case of Vietnam, offshore wind is not yet tapped, although Vietnamese power development plan project is huge amount of the offshore wind to come after up to 2050. but it can be more advanced, and then it can be a kind of game changer for the region. And then also there's a complementarities with the solar to be developed in other countries, and also including Vietnam too. Laos have been developing this, have a huge potential also for the combining solar with existing hydro, and then also provide the pump storage hydro, as a kind of storage capacity, not only for the country itself, but also for the region. And then also there's a new development from Singapore that actually they also now have the new clean energy demand to replace their gas-based power generation system, and they've been calling energy tender from the neighboring countries, 4 gigawatt of clean energy, and that actually also changed the dynamics of future power trade in the region. This is a kind of steps that have been outlined in the past and to now, and this is a typical progression of the power trade, starting from the bilateral cross-border PPA, grid-to-grid trade, moving to the multilateral power trade, and then moving in the last actually fully integrated regional market. And this is the kind of vision set by the political leaders under ASEAN, but as well as in the GMS. At the moment, a lot of actually the trade is done through the bilateral cross-border PPA, but as I mentioned, in the GMS region, increasing grid-to-grid connections, and Laos already connected with Thailand and Cambodia. Also, China being connected with Laos, Myanmar. And we see that this grid-to-grid connections is likely to increase further in the future. Multilateral power trade also being initiated, and one of the notable example is from Laos through Thailand and Malaysia into Singapore. So another initiatives going to be made to use of this multilateral power trade. And then now we think it's important to think about how we formulate the regional power market as a last stage. Okay, so I'm gonna skip a few slides given the time. This is the kind of showing the benefits of the regional power trade, how much actually investment cost and avoid costs we can achieve by having interconnections between countries. And we've compared the business as usual scenarios. The country developed its own systems and versus power system studies generate its own optimal solutions, and then actually allow the countries to interconnect each other so that the country's endowment also fully utilized to supply not only the internal demands, but also the other countries' demand too. And the difference is we see that around 20 billion of the avoid costs can be achieved. And this is the kind of interconnections that we identify can drive these cost savings in the region. And one of the interconnections identified from study actually now presented the real opportunities, because the Vietnam among these GMS countries, they have added around 20 gigawatt of renewable in the last few years, and out of the 80 gigawatt system, and it's actually very high ramp in terms of the addition integrations. And in the last few years, there's a curtailment because of this development cannot be supported with the grid development. And the regional studies show that actually these curtailed powers could have shared with Cambodia, have also increasing demand but lack of supply sources, and like achieve the more optimal balance between within the country, and then also achieve the lower cost. What we like to suggest that, as a forward, and this is what happens in the region, mainly between the countries and developers and grid operators that basically, arrange the power trade using the bilateral PPA. What we like to suggest is actually going forward, given the arrangement of the renewables being developed very rapidly, setting up this regional power market to allow the kind of short-term trade between the countries, because the long-term PPA really doesn't allow the countries to trade when it's needed on a short-term basis. And then this is the approaches we suggested, basically allowing the national, keeping the national control of the dispatching, within the countries, but actually allow them to come into the regional market as needed. And this is how we see that in the future that countries have a different stage of the regional internal market mechanism. Vietnam, for example, have a already electricity market, a spot market, whereas the other countries have a many and a single buyer model. But regardless of what kind of the market or the system established within the country, still the regional market can be used as an additional platform beside national dispatching arrangement to arrange the additional resources as needed on a short-term basis, having the day-ahead market. And it can be evolved with also the evolution of the national market development. And this is a kind of following example of the Nordic pool. Basically, also in the country like Norway started the national market, but actually the other countries been added gradual basis, and then this is actually formed now 16 European electricity pool market, and it showed actually a lot of kind of complementarities between the countries in terms of the power trade. And another example is South African power pool, also started bilateral contract like in our region, but evolved to energy market and short-term market as well as the other market, and now more advanced in terms of the forward market and balanced market. So we see that, as I mentioned, there are a lot of benefits in terms of savings, having interconnections, because you can share and then also optimize the use of the different renewable energies among the countries. And some countries have a huge potential for wind, some countries have huge potential for wind, for the solar, and then also the hydro-based systems and the pump storage. All combined actually provide the optimal and then least cost options for the region. Last 15 seconds, this is a kind of key work plans that we have discussed in the last 1.5 days under GMS to set up this pilot regional power market to allow the countries to conform and then to operate this power market as additional platform to allow them to trade on a short-term electricity flow. Thank you very much. This is pleasure to share this initiatives with you, and I will look forward to having any questions and discussion later on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the next mic. My presentation. Yeah. Thank you, Ajay. So now you have seen how or what's happening in the Southeast Asia or in the GMS region. But let me very quickly take you through what's happening in South Asia. I will make it very, very quick so that we'll have more time later on. So as you can see, South Asia region is quite big because of the large country like India being there. So as you can see, there is a home to 1.9 billion people with the 25% of our population. If you can look at the 3.3 trillion GDP, fifth largest economy. And then the market structure is also very different in a country like in Nepal and Sri Lanka. It's vertically integrated. And then in this buyer side also, you can see that there is a single buyer for Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bhutan. Private sector participation is also quite active in many of these places. Independent power producers are also very active in all of these areas. But if you look at our total per capita electricity consumption, it is still very, very low compared to other countries or the global average there. This is just to show that what is the situation of various countries in terms of various electricity sources. These are some of these information may need to be updated. I need to acknowledge that one because things are changing. New information or new capacity have been added there. But just to give you a sense that countries like Nepal and Bhutan are almost all hydropower, but whereas in other countries there is a lot of fossil fuel and also other sources of energy is happening. And then you can also see on the other side of on the slide that there is a high dependence on the fossil fuel in some places, whereas some other countries have a lot of renewable energy resources, especially hydro, that have the potential for sharing that information, sharing that power to the region. I mean, this is also some of the information about what's happening in the power sector. If we look at the electricity growth, especially on the renewable energy, looking at the climate change targets and also their own plan of meeting the additional demand. So the push for the renewable energy has also been increasing quite substantially. I mean, look at India has announced for this 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel energy by 2030 and so on. So all of these countries in the region have a very, very ambitious renewable energy targets, as you can see in the slide. And this is also a slide which shows that future demand is also quite increasing quite rapidly. And then of course, if you look at the chart, India being the large country, the demand is quite large compared to the other countries also. But at least that shows that the increasing demand in the South Asia region is increasing quite rapidly. And then in order to match that demand through internal supply sources, would cover most of it, but the regional cooperation would have a huge potential and prospects in taking this one forward. So now this takes me to the new slide on this regional cooperation possibilities. As you can see, there is a prospects for the seasonal complementarity in the region, and also on the technology side of it, and also mobilizing financing, and then the regional buyer and also the market, especially in India, has provided that kind of support to move this agenda forward for the region. And then again, if you look at what's happening in the region in terms of a cross-border power trade, now it's basically India, Nepal, India, Bhutan, India, Bangladesh, India, Myanmar. That's what's happening right now. India being the central and a very large country, and of course these numbers: India, Bangladesh about 1,160 megawatt. I think probably need to update it. Bhutan and India and Nepal. So all of these countries are having existing trade with India right now. And then the new developments are happening to enhance and increase that power trade opportunities in these countries also. There are also various cross-border lines are already connected. So basically, India, Nepal, Bhutan, all these countries are kind of connected to each other, and that's where the power trade is happening right now. But looking at the prospects of additional cross-border power trade opportunities, there are new transmission lines are also being connected, being planned. Some are under construction, some are being planned, and some are also being negotiated. And this list keeps on getting updated as we make a progress because of the bilateral discussion between these countries. I think this is also a very important slide because India has this power exchange, IEX, that provides that kind of a platform where within India and also outside countries can also participate to buy and sell electricity, and there is also day-ahead market and other markets are available. This provides that kind of a very transparent mechanism of trading that power through that IEX in India. Now, when it comes to SASAC, the side of it, I think what is important for us is that we have these SASAC operational priorities for the SASAC region. And ADB has been providing that support to the SASAC countries, South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation. And then there is a special pillar for energy. There is also for transport and others, and trade and others. But on the energy, as you can see, that enhanced connectivity is one of them, and then low carbon alternatives, and also diversifying energy sources. So these are the three main strategic objectives of this SASAC plan. And as you can see, that our vision for SASAC operation plan in the energy sector is to improve the interconnection and also harness unused regional indigenous hydropower potential and also develop low carbon alternative energy sources in the region. So this is the document that provides a kind of a basis for us to enhance or push this agenda here. And then the SASAC platform has a very strong government ownership from all of these countries there. And then there are also various working groups have been established, and there is also a specific working group on the energy, through which we are undertaking various activities to push this agenda forward. And I will talk a little bit more about that one a little later. So in terms of our SASAC energy sector initiative, as you can see that there is a SASAC-wide network integration, as I mentioned earlier, promotion of clean, low-carbon technologies, and then also various projects have already been, interconnection projects are already have been constructed. Some of them have also been financed by ADB and some other development partners. And then there's a lot of dialogue happening right now among these countries to push this agenda forward, whether it is for hydropower and also for green fuel development and so on. We have also one regional technical assistance, specifically to support this energy cooperation in South Asia. As you can see that we started with a $2 million, now it's a $3.5 million technical assistance is ongoing right now. And then it has activities like promoting updating the master plan for SASAC region, and also identify and maintain a kind of a database of cross-border projects or projects which will contribute for the regional cooperation in the region. And then this focus is also on the capacity building side of it. And then this is where we have undertaken a lot of training programs and then also for the government officials and also regulators and so on. And then these are all kind of demand driven from the countries and also through our energy working group meetings. That's where we receive this kind of a request to do this and that. And then we're also very pleased to continue providing that support as well. So this is just a glimpse of some of the things that we are doing. For example, we are also working very closely with the CEB on this India-Sri Lanka interconnection, and then also work on the India-Bangladesh thing, interconnection related work, and also trying to assess what's currently happening there, what are the opportunities, and how institutions like ADB can support. That doesn't mean that ADB has to finance those activities, but at least we want to push and make the projects happen, make it ready for taking it forward. As I said earlier, there is a SASAC nodal officials meeting and also energy working group meetings. We have been also organizing these activities. And also in the part of the capacity building, this Bhutan Power System Operator, BPSO, has also requested us to support them in their human resource management plan, so which we are also supporting to them. So again, these are just a sample of activities that we are doing, and then we hope that this will continue as we move forward there. And then we do not want to end here. We feel that this regional cooperation for South Asia should also continue. And then there is a renewable integration, building of hydropower and power market products. So these are the new areas that we feel that we should continue helping. And then, if you have any comments or suggestions for us to focus on in the coming days, that we'll also appreciate, and then we'll take on board there. And also some of these, whether it's a PPAs preparation and also pricing mechanism, infrastructure development, smart grid infrastructure, renewable energy and policy revisions are also areas where we'll like to continue supporting our region in this area. So that's a very quick overview of what's happening in South Asia. As you can see that Southeast Asia, especially in the GMS region, has a lot of activities. Our South Asia has also a lot of activities. There are some activities which are also kind of a common areas. So I think there's a lot of lessons learned in this as we move forward there. So. So now with this, now I would like to move on because of the time. So now we'll move on to our panel discussion. But before we do that one, I wanted to request Dr. Jyoti Parikh to kind of give a scene setting quick presentation because we have also supported one study on this South Asia and Southeast Asia kind of assessment, and then Dr. Parikh has led that study, and we requested her to make a quick presentation, and after that we'll come for that presentation. So Dr. Parikh, please. Yeah. Yeah, you can just this one, yeah?
How many minutes? 10 minutes?
10 minutes, yeah.
Can I just try first? Thank you very much for inviting me here, and very encouraged to hear all these earlier presentations. And also yesterday, we showed that it's not just about power system. When your power system is connected with macroeconomy, it brings macroeconomic transformations, especially in countries like Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Laos, and so on. It's also about environment because amount of CO2 emissions you save because of hydro and gas and so on. Basically, hydro and solar and renewable, they can trade with each other and they would need each other. And as you go further, expanding more and more renewables, you cannot help but connect with each other and support each other and deliver very confirmed power. So basically, drivers of connectivities are you must have a growth of demand, which we all have, and then we thought that we have to go to additional step, which is that South Asia and Southeast Asia. And so that's a very big new idea that they gave us. And all the time I was actually working before on connecting southern region, western region of India and so on, and then came to 7 countries of South Asia, and now Southeast Asia and South Asia. So we first have fairly detailed models for Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal. We also put along with that Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and then Southeast Asian countries. We didn't do ourselves, but we used ASEAN and IRENA model support. Basically, we are discussing with about large populations of 1635 of SASAC region, 606. So we are talking about a large GDP, large population, installed capacity is 400 gigawatts, and again it's about 300 there, and fossil fuel shares are quite high in both the regions, and we need to share, non-fossil shares are 36 and 33%. Electricity sector is we are all, per capita electricity is very low in region, and so you can have nothing. Growth is an imperative, and because of growth and other compulsions, we need to really cooperate. And there is plenty of unused, untapped renewable power in both the regions. In both the regions have made a beginning. Both of them have fairly good start where we have, in South Asia, we have power exchange working and already it's operating. We have 8 transmission, 16 interconnections, and you have also, Southeast Asia has also 17 interconnections and 16. But total electricity trade is 16 in SASEC and 34 terawatt hour. So, and SASEC, Southeast Asia had much earlier beginning in 1997. And we began practically in a 2012 or so, I would say. And then we have power exchange, but they have very good agreement for each other, which we don't have yet. So the modeling was possible for only SASEC countries, but we've tried to see that how can this happen. I will not bore you with modeling details, but model will give us till 2050. Now today we are already somewhat interconnected. We've just begun, but how does it look if we are going till 2020, 30, 40, 50? Because otherwise, unless you take a very long-term view, we don't know if it's the right path. So to do that, we assessed whether there were enough renewable energy potential and what are the... So it's a question of whether you trade or you don't trade. So low trade and high trade scenarios for electricity generation for the entire region is given here. And you could see that with time, the renewable is green, and you could see that it's growing. Renewable is growing in this case. It was 15% to start with, and then 45, 48, this is the solar. And high trade scenario is going even further. So down below, you can see that low trade is also fairly high. So basically, we are talking about 2,000 gigawatt system and about 6,000 terawatt hour system by 2050 for SASEC area. And you could see CO2 intensity going down because of trade. You could also see that non-fossil shares. Now I come to Southeast Asia. I claim no knowledge of that as much, but we have learned a lot looking at ATS and IRENA scenarios. And IRENA scenarios has more renewable energy, so you could see that by 2030, that is 46%, and in 2050, it's 76% scenario. I see that IRENA's economic growth rate is higher than ASEAN study, and ASEAN study has also more fossil shares because of the low NDC. They have assumed the 2015 NDC scenario, but subsequently they themselves have increased their ambitions. So you find that these are IRENA's results, that they save 786 MT CO2 annually in 2050. This is through the interconnections within Southeast Asia that we just heard in the first presentation. And there also, there is a lot of progress. And if there is a power market also, progress would be even faster. So you could now see the comparison that SASEC, they are fairly comparable systems, and I don't see any single reason why they could not could come together and try to work out also further interconnections to help each other. Essentially, I don't have load curves here today, but load curves of January, June, we have 288 load curves that we tried. In the summertime, Nepal sends in electricity to India because their water. In the winter time, India exports to Nepal. So similarly here also, this is not seasonal driven, but time driven now, East Asia and Southeast Asia and SASEC. So you can see that when you go to 2050, the 82% non-fossil can be reached with the help of the trade among themselves right now. But if we work together and work out a system so that we can work with each other, that would be bringing even more. If you look at the CO2 emissions, fairly big gains can be done by trading. So we should now, a roadmap should be developed to connect SASEC with the Southeast Asia and informal and formal groups within. We have already many groups like BIMSTEC, ASEAN, HAPUA. So some of these groups have to now take it up and say how to recognize the regional connectivity as an international cooperation has a legitimate place in the power sector planning and promote it in all decisions, policies, and actions. Develop power markets for spot trading, day-ahead and term-ahead markets. Use them to maximize renewable energy capacity and in all the countries in both the regions. Allowing power to flow from the neighboring countries. Carrying out capacity building and awareness programs amongst all levels, and so on. So I think that final summary slide is here. Non-fossil share increases because of the trade. And so we are not the opposite question. If you don't trade, this is the result. If you trade, this is the result. So that's we have a higher system efficiency and also higher CO2 emission savings by both the regions. So we need, and macroeconomically, there's a transforming opportunity for developing countries. So I think that Southeast Asia and South Asia should really combine, and ADB has to wear that crown. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So thank you, Dr. Parikh. So now we'll move on to our panel discussion session. So I would like to invite panelists to come to the dais, and then we can begin our discussion. So now let me first of all invite Dinesh Kumar Gimere, Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, Government of Nepal. And I would like to invite Solivan Thamavong. Sorry, my pronunciation may not be right. Acting Director, Power System Planning and Control from Electricity de Laos. Rena Kuawata from International Energy Agency. Okay, so maybe join later. And then we have Alex Pereira from the Deputy Director, Global Energy Program of WRI, the World Resources Institute, and Stefano Genobi, WWF. Would you like to come here also? Dr. Parikh, why don't you come so that at least in case if there are any questions, then you can also take it forward. So what I would like to do is I will request all the panelists to share some of their thoughts in terms of these prospects of cooperation for energy trade from South Asia and Southeast Asia from their own perspective. And then after that, we'll open a Q&A session to have a further discussions as well. So I will just request Dinesh sir to share his thoughts on these prospects of South Asia and Southeast Asia regional power trade, please.
South and Southeast Asia is characterized by diverse energy resource endowments and consumption patterns. In South Asia, Nepal and Bhutan are rich in hydropower, whereas India and Bangladesh are heavily dependent on the depleting fossil fuel resources like coal and natural gas. Of course, the strength of South and Southeast Asia also lies in nature's blessing for significant potential of solar and wind power generation. South and Southeast Asia are required to meet rapidly rising energy demand of these countries, improve the quality of power supply to consumers, and provide universal access to electricity by expediting renewable energy transition for a sustainable future simultaneously. There is an urgent need to decarbonize energy systems without compromising the energy security in individual countries. For this purpose, these countries have to expand and integrate adequate energy markets, build resilient and efficient transmission infrastructures, and adopt the suitable policies as an integrated regional approach. Countries have committed to achieve net zero emissions within a certain time frame. For this, the cross-border power trading is very important because it reduces the dependence on the hydrocarbon-based energy consumptions, underpins the optimum resource sharing and utilization, de-stimulates energy market shocks, and finally contributes toward accelerating smooth energy transition in the region. In this context, multilateral cooperation and collaboration through energy partnership among the individual countries should be the topmost priority in order to perform cleanly and correctly in the energy trilemma, that is energy security, energy equity, and environmental sustainability. However, geopolitical considerations should not be factored into our policy making for deepening regional and extra-regional energy integration. Energy transition is not possible through the efforts of a single country for various reasons, including resource availability, demand patterns, energy access, outlook, and market dynamics. Over the past decade, a myriad of bilateral and sub-regional initiatives have been championed in South and Southeast Asia, and the experience over the same has demonstrated that desired results in sustainable energy transition is too far to be achieved without integrated and well-coordinated action plans, which need to be executed in tandem with partner countries. It ultimately requires us to go for greater engagement through regional and extra-regional power trading. If we linger on considering energy coordination and partnership as a political and strategic commodity, very little space will be left to us for improving the regional energy architecture in South and Southeast Asia. It's my firm belief that prevailing institutional frameworks and policy instruments such as SAARC, BBIN, BIMSTEC, and SASEC will successfully work towards enabling the conducive environment for seamless, well-planned cross-border power trading by emulating and simulating the country-wise energy scenarios. So far as Nepal is concerned, as a South Asian country, its hydroelectricity, which is a green and clean form of energy, can help the neighboring countries in their mission to decarbonize the energy sector at a faster pace. Nepal believes that its hydropower export, after meeting the domestic demands, will benefit not only Nepal economically, but also the neighboring countries for reducing fossil fuel-based energy generation and consumption, which have posed serious threats to the environment and the associated livelihoods. In this regard, Nepal and India have recently agreed to export hydropower to India up to a capacity of 10,000 megawatt in the next 10 years. This will inspire other countries in South and Southeast Asia for extended cooperation in enhancing the level of power trading by developing robust, resilient, and efficient grid connectivity among them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now we heard perspective from South Asia. So now let's move on to Southeast Asia, sir, please.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Yes, thank you for ASEP to invite me from Laos, Electric do Laos. According to Dr. Lee explained to you that the progress of work that we are doing, at GMS Greater Mekong Subregion Committee. May I, because Dr. Lee explained a lot of Laos in the concept that, so I will go to the detail of that. So Laos, for the transition, we are already more than 95% of the green energy. So that is maybe no more challenging to us to do that. But our neighboring country, they also need our green energy. So we have the potential a lot of that to support and provide them. Example, we have more than 20 interconnection line with ICAT, with Thailand, with Cambodia, and with Vietnam, also China. So we try to promote the power two ways. We call power exchange. We have power exchange with ICAT more than Thailand for 50 years. 50 years is very long run. Example, just last year, during the period of gas and fuel price is very expensive. So we can support them by the green energy, also the certificate of green energy. So it's really a lot of benefit to both sides. Example, for during this year, also Vietnam, sorry to refer to many countries that we work together. This year, in this period, Vietnam also have the power shortage a lot, 3,000 to 4,000 every minute, to shut down every household. But just for the small key to be the barrier, just for the PPA, if just they open that portion, we can send them more than 200, 300 megawatt. It's very easy. It's just a small key issue of them. The second thing that is for the interconnection. For the second thing, because the energy transition is accelerating too fast. Every country they input a lot of renewable energy to achieve that target. But besides that, a lot of excess energy during the time period of example, for the solar, they try to consume all, but as you know, every country, we know that still have many issues there. They curtail a lot of solar, the wind, but if we have the interconnection and we open it, we can absorb them, the curtail of them as the unused energy to valuable energy when they need. I can consume there to save the water, to pump into my storage and give them back in the time of period of them. It's a very good idea if we have the interconnection market or exchange energy concept. It's very good for that too. It's the one way to achieve the carbon neutral, as you know. It's the one side. Inside that, we still have the many interconnection. That the concept, as Dr. Lee said, today we have the bilateral PPAs, but after the 10 year when the loan can repay to the banks, so another power source can use that facility to make it more efficiency and benefit to the project. Is one of the second, after the PPA expire, we can use that to be the regional power interconnection to the region. It has step by step, as Dr. Lee explained that. We have 4 steps. And the third step, yes, bilateral power trade. The good example from the Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore is very popular as we know. we send the power green energy from Laos to Singapore for the pilot project 100 megawatt. But now they try to extend to 300 in next 2 years and 4,000 megawatt in the 2030. You see, it's a lot of challenging there. Alone, Laos alone cannot do something is big like that to give that. So we use cooperation between Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. We try to study about that to do the submarine to Singapore. It's the one way, the concept that we are the corporation, we are the regional corporation of that. During the on the road to there, we have many despite progress. You see, the ASEAN power grid is not going well because of the diversity, as you know, at that, and the barrier of each country. We must consider to make them to more clearly about because they concern about grid stability, the national energy security of them. So ADB now is doing very hard working to make them to expand their understanding, the knowledge, the technology, to absorb, to ensure that this will be happen in very soon. So finally, GMS country, also ASEAN country, we shall open the heart, open the mind, jump out the comfort zone, and jump in to the challenging, to be close and cooperation to reduce one target of us, the neutral carbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I think it's good to get that perspective from Laos and what's happening in the GMS. It's quite encouraging to see how you are doing it for Singapore and other countries as well. So that's great. So now I'll move on to Alex, so you can share your thoughts in terms of what you are doing and so on, especially in this promoting this regional trade in South Asia, Southeast Asia, on this perspective.
Great. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Alex Pereira with the World Resources Institute. And WRI, we're one of the secretariat members of the Asia Clean Energy Coalition, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. I don't see my slides up. There we go. Perfect. So the Asia Clean Energy Coalition is just released a paper with sort of highlighting some thoughts and some kind of potential enhancements to what could be included in a new kind of regional grid MOU that ASEAN is working on. And so we're going to share some highlights from that paper. Let me see here. So the Asia Clean Energy Coalition. So first of all, a few words about who ASEC is. So ASEC is a corporate-led coalition of companies. Yesterday we heard a lot of great panels and discussions about U.S. government-supported collaborations with the private sector. This is a corporate-led initiative for Asia. It brings together buyers, developers, and financiers to bring perspectives together on what are the challenges to renewable energy procurement and how do we address them, so it's really actionable. And it really focused on making some policy improvements to strengthen the market for corporate procurement. Companies are under incredible pressure by 2030 to diversify their energy portfolio, and ASEC can play a really important role working with partners like you all to support policy frameworks in the region. Steering group members at ASEC, we did some calculations and showed that the market cap of the steering group is about the size of Japan's GDP, so we're talking about some large companies in the region. And we think that these companies are some of the biggest energy buyers, some of the big investors, project developers, and can bring some important perspectives and discussions to the discussions about energy transition in Asia. The Accelerating Power Grid paper Here's the QR code. You all can take a picture of it now. Don't download it now. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this paper, so you don't want to miss what I'm about to tell you. But you can take a picture and download it later. So we recognize, we've heard a lot from the panelists and other speakers about the importance of an integrated power grid. And I think there's a lot of agreement that that is, the right way to go. And we're looking at, there's the ASEAN MOU is being updated, I guess, next year. What's the opportunity to strengthen that MOU? And it's also a very fortuitous time because companies are under incredible pressure, as I mentioned, to hit their 2030 decarbonization goals and targets. So the companies are very supportive of this MOU process and other discussions that you all are having, and just want to support that and be part of the dialogue and release this paper to kind of lay out some recommendations from the private sector or some thoughts, right, from the private sector on how to support an improved regional grid. So, look, benefits of the power grid. Dr. Parikh, you actually talked about a lot of this good stuff, and so I don't want to have to summarize everything that the experts have talked about. We've covered, improved energy security, power system flexibility, much more efficient regional trading and power procurement, improved integration of renewables, cost-effective power system emissions reductions, and economic development, right? This is going to be a huge investment opportunity for the region. It's also going to attract a lot of businesses who are increasingly looking to site where their next manufacturing facility is being placed based on where they can access low-carbon resources. I was on a panel just a few weeks ago, actually with a company, they're a distillery of whiskey. They had to close a distillery down because they couldn't access low-carbon resources. So look, if you like whiskey, please decarbonize your grid so these distilleries who have these goals and targets can site their distillery in your country. Barriers, we talked, I'm not going to go into this. I think a lot of this has been covered. But look, here are some of the enhancements that ASEC is suggesting to an MOU that's in the paper, and this is sort of the key piece here is that, look, formalizing a regular coordinated process for holistic planning is really important. A lot of this is happening kind of at the country level, but really getting a coordinated regional process, I think everybody agrees that that is an important outcome. Prioritizing grid interconnections that enable higher penetration of renewable energy. How do we, there's a lot of grid interconnections in the queue. How do we prioritize them, rank them, to make sure that that's helping to support decarbonization of the regional grid? Developing harmonized regulatory technical frameworks, right? Each grid has different technical frameworks and regulations overseeing it. It's the same in Asia, it's the same in many countries, and the more we can harmonize those, the better will be for power trading and regional power trading. A data platform so that, as we're transacting across grids, the regulator, the utility is actually collecting the same types of data for each grid, so companies can have more standardized transactions, especially for emissions reporting. At WRI, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol is updating their Scope 2 guidance, and this is going to be a big issue in how the Scope 2 guidance is tracking corporate leadership and actually starting to think about how we ask countries and utilities to have standardized sort of data to enable better transactions for renewables. And then recognizing the essential role that regulators can play in this and really engaging with them proactively. So, look, that's it. This is really just to say the private sector is very much eager to support this build-out of a regional grid. And ASEC is very interested in working with all of you in the room to bring the private sector voice and perspective into these discussions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex, for bringing that private sector perspective, and also quite encouraging to see that the private sector is also very keen and to support and work with everybody to move this agenda forward. Thank you, Alex. So now let's move on to Stefano, who is from the WWF, please.
Okay. Thank you, Juan. And yeah, going last, I wonder what else is left to say. Coming from WWF, we are an environmental organization, so you probably wonder what I'm actually doing over here. I hope I will be able to actually add something to the conversation that hasn't been touched so far. I'm actually an economist by background, and a lot has already been said. So let me try to, I think, touch a dimension, and one of the benefits that WWF sees in power trade in the Mekong region where I work with, but I believe applicable elsewhere as well, that hopefully you will find it interesting for moving this conversation forward as well. When you start trading, you do reduce pressure on some of your internal resources that you might be utilizing suboptimally. If you do that, beside increasing economic benefits and reducing carbon emission, you're also avoiding damages to nature and potentially people, and you're safeguarding your ecosystem services. A key thing that WWF believes in is that energy should be low cost, low carbon, but also low conflict. If we want to move forward, if we want to move forward fast, we want to be sure that we don't trip into any additional issues. And having power trade will allow us to reduce conflict within countries, between countries, and within communities. WWF, and one of the reasons why I joined this panel is that we are about to publish a report. It's not available yet, but if you're interested in to be in touch with me after or connect with me, it's on LinkedIn. And this report look at this dimension. We have developed a study on the benefits of power trade, and we have done that with civil society organizations, which are stakeholders that are often not very much active in the conversation. And in the past, the civil society have seen power trade and the regional interconnection as actually a negative thing, because it would almost ask or allow countries to externalize some of their cost and negative impacts. However, like with this work that we have done and with the very much needed energy transition, the power trade is a huge opportunity. And we believe that with the work that we have done, now civil society can actually engage and promote and support in the same way as the private sectors, government, and other agencies are currently doing. In that regard, we know that all Asia and definitely the Mekong region needs more energy, but it also needs to meet other goals. It needs to work on its carbon emission, but it also is one of the most affected region worldwide from climate impacts. Extreme weather events, floods, storms, all of that. And if you don't safeguard your ecosystem services, you're going to suffer from that. You're not going to be able to adapt. You're not going to be able to sustainably develop and meet all your other sustainable development goals, and thus you're going to fail on that. And when we are looking at power, trade, and energy, we need to really also keep in mind that there is a nexus between food, energy, climate, and water that is quite essential in this region. And again, as a final remark, yes, please keep all of this in mind, looking at the Sustainable Development Goal. And when you promote the power trade, remember that you are really achieving not just energy results, but a lot of other important goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefano, for bringing that, or let's say reminding us that how important it is that we have to make sure that whenever we do transmission lines or any power trade, we have to also look into environmental aspect of it and also other safeguard related things. That's very, very good, an important point. When would that your report be out?
Sorry?
When would your report be out?
That's a good question. So we are now copy editing that. So I hope by the end of August we'll be able to put it out. We actually have another report that might be also interesting for this community, which is an approach to inclusive and resilient linear infrastructure, and we're launching that next week. Feel free to connect with me for that as well.
Good, thank you. We look forward to it. I mean, we are kind of running late already, but I would like to really open the floor for now. If any of you have any burning questions or anything, okay, I see. Let's collect 2 or 3, and then we can quickly finish it. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, there's one question there. Please, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for those great presentations. I thought I learned a lot from hearing from all of you. As somebody who has sort of worked on these questions about power trade in this region for some time, it's good to see that there's been some significant recent developments and improvements in this area, both in South and Southeast Asia, which is great news, I guess, looking forward. But the one thing that I feel like I'm still kind of missing in this discussion, and some of you touched on it a little bit, is, in your opinion, as somebody who's been thinking about these sorts of issues, what would be the number one barrier that you consider for South and Southeast Asia? The minister talked about, I think, challenges with bilateral and multilateral issues. Alex, I think you talked about a whole series of barriers that, and I'm going to go look at the report and learn from them. But if you had to distill all of that to say, okay, here is the one thing that's holding us back, do you think it's, for example, geopolitics? Is it technology? Is it cost? Is it something else? And I see, Dr. Parikh, you're nodding your head, so I'd be definitely interested in your opinion as well.
Attention, please. ADBHQ experienced a minor tremor a short time ago. Building assessment is ongoing. There is no need to evacuate. Normal activities can continue.
I hope I didn't cause that.
Building assessment is ongoing. There is no need to evacuate. Normal activities can continue.
Again, I hope I didn't cause that, but
No,
I think I made my point. So yeah, I'd be curious to sort of hear all of your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you didn't really cause it, but it was a important, good question there. But I think we can continue our discussion. So can I collect one or two more questions? Yeah, Suriji, please. Let's make it quick, and then I'll come back to the panel list.
Well, there are many opportunities for power trade, but we see that there are 3 challenges. One is political challenge, which is biggest in either it is in South Asia or Southeast Asia. Then there is a financial challenge, of course, the finance might be there, and then there is a technical challenge. Because there is also discussion going on among the China, Mongolia, Japan, South Korea, Russia, to have a super grid to get the power from the Gobi Desert, Mongolia and China, to the other countries. But there is a major political issue, right? Because China, they see the security issues, and then Russia, North Korea, South Korea, the political issue is the major. If you look on the South Asia also, there is a Pakistan, India, and other countries. So how the ADB can influence or play the important role to settle the, political issue, of course, it is very difficult, and then the ADB is not regional political hub, something like that, it's a regional financial institution. So how do you see this issue? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one last question. If you don't have, it's also fine, because we're also running out of time. Good, thank you. So what I request is that I will respond to that ADB question, but maybe Dr. Parikh, if you can just from that side, let's make it very, very quick, yeah? So all of you, then I would also request to make all of you to make your final comments if you have any.
Groups have really increased the confidence, like BIMSTEC now brings Myanmar to the table, Thailand to the table, and BIMSTEC is a Bay of Bengal countries union, and its office is it's in Bangladesh for this, and data center is in India, and we have a meeting next week in Colombo. So these groups, I think that the same way ASEAN group has got together, SARC, and earlier it was SARC, but now it BIMSTEC much more active. So they group bring the confidence of private sector also to take risk, and financial risks are also taken based on agreement of all the political powers that yes, we want to do it. By the way, and on the climate side, you know, I wear a much bigger hat on climate actually, because I'm 3 times participants to Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. And we talk to take supply side options, demand side options, supply side options are wind, solar, biomass, etc. And demand side is electric vehicles, energy efficiency, etc. But this is, what is this? This is neither of them. So that is why it is more like cooperative managerial solution. So I think cooperative solutions have to be included first. If I ask you, and because they are, it's not only that some countries would be deprived of more prosperity. They have renewables and they cannot use it to give it to others. So please don't take that line that it has to be done within the borders. It has to be done by it's a global problem. It has to have a global solution, and there's nothing more global than a regional solution. So that is not the line I think we should take as a climate enthusiasts. In fact, we are doing net zero solutions for India, and India runs out of certain solutions. Okay, go to carbon capture and storage. Why? I mean, it's like burying the same thing in the ground. So I would consider this is a bigger solution than CCS. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parikh. So let's move on from that side. If you have any, Stefano, do you have any? If you don't have, it's also perfectly fine. Yeah. So
yeah. No, I guess very quickly, I just want to reiterate. Then let's all work together to promote and use power trade to promote development, safeguard, and protect the environment, and support all the people that are in the highest need. Thank you.
So yeah, I guess building on the theme of working together, I mean, we talk about a coordinated process, right? It's hard to coordinate with a group of countries. It's easier to go do something by yourself. And so this is actually where kind of ADB, the capacity building that you guys are doing to kind of help countries understand what's in it for them about being coordinated with the region. Because actually, if you do this all together, everybody's going to benefit, and it's going to bring economic development and security back into their countries. So just kind of getting that message across, you know, supporting the training with ADB to kind of really get buy-in on the coordinated process would be really interesting.
Yes, we are the member of GMS. We have the roadmap, we have the plan that following the agenda and activity of ADB. Yes, we will be following that to enhance our capacity building, to make every people in our region to understand and cooperate to make it more efficiency and to do the good thing to the world. Thank you.
When I listened to the first question, actually I had listed about 6 to 7 barriers here of the cross-border trade in Southeast and South and Southeast Asia. But after I heard that question, I made 6 sub-barriers and 1 barrier. So I want to emphasize on connectivity. First is connectivity, because every member states have their own potential resources and generations ready. Some of them are not having enough generation, so they are wanting power from that surplus generation country. So connectivity is the first barrier that we have to put all our focus, and then other sub barriers for that, maybe, you know, again, the political barriers, and then regulatory, and then you know, coordination, all kinds of barriers are there that they are to be crossed to, you know, materialize the connectivity and make the power trade happen, actually. Thank you.
Thank you. There was also one question about what can ADB do, and so, you know, our role is very simple and very clear, because we are not a political organization, and then as a development partner, we respond to the request from our developing member countries and also other partners. And then our supports are limited to, or are focused on either providing a capacity building kind of a support, knowledge generation and dissemination, and of course our investment. So these are the areas that we provide our support. And then what we also believe is that in almost all of these countries, we have an active energy sector engagement. So we are financing various projects, capacity building going on. There's existing relationship with them. So when we also, you know, enjoy that privilege of, you know, receiving that trust and confidence from all of these countries, so then it's also easier for us to bring in right relevant stakeholders together, and then have that discussion in one place to see how we can move forward there. And in that process, whatever the countries feel that ADB should contribute, then we're always happy and eager to do that one. Okay, so I think we need to kind of close this panel discussion before I request my colleague to give the closing remarks. This is our first attempt to bring in South and Southeast Asia for such a complex topic. You know, South Asia alone is so much going on, Southeast Asia alone so much going on, and here we are trying to bring it together in 1.5 hours. Is definitely not possible, and that has not been our intention. But we wanted to begin that dialogue and discussion to see how we can bring these two regions together, and of course we'll expand that one further there. We'd like to thank all the panelists for your time and so on, and also the participants. But I will ask my colleague Ajay to do the formal closing of this session. So Ajay, please.
Yes, thank you very much. It's not going to be formal in a way in terms of the closing the session. It's the beginning of our dialogue, I think, going forward. Yes, I think everyone agrees that the carbon neutrality goals by 2050, 2060, commitment made, but ambition is very high, and also now it's time to really think about how we achieve this target. And as of now, in reality, we still rely on the fossil fuel-based electricity systems. 70% from this fossil fuels and 30% maybe in the clean and renewable energy based. And now we have to revert this number by 2050, and it's less than maybe 30 years. So I think it's very clear that regional interconnectivity is not an option. It's kind of a necessity for us to achieve this ambition. And without this interconnection, we think actually the likelihood of achieving this target is getting lower, and the cost of this transition is going to be very high for individual country. So if we connect it more and more, it's likely we achieve this target, and then the least cost to the communities and people. And all of us, actually the policymaker, utility, and then also investor, the buyers, and big corporates and communities, all of us actually agree on this agenda and committee to deliver. So I think our future is bright, and then I think there's a lot to work to do. 3 key things to do, to my views, and one is about the physical infrastructure, connectivity, but also on the other hand, the market has to be open and connected as well. So all the means of the bilateral, multilateral, also power pool, power exchange, power market, it has to come together to deliver. And to do so, we need to work together and integrated and then also coordinated as well. So with this, I would like to thank all of you, contributions from the panel and speakers, and as well as participants. Thank you very much.